All right, welcome back to another episode of Kiwi and Pixel the Parakeets. You see I've got Kiwi here with me right now, and he's just sort of chilling. So anyway, today's video is going to be about how we got Kiwi and how he talks and why he talks, and if you are a bird owner, how you get your bird to talk as well. We've done a couple of short videos on this, but people keep asking us, how do you get your birds to talk? And I'd like to share a little bit more about that with you guys. So I'm going to rewind a bit, about 5 years, and go back and start at the beginning of this little history that we call Kiwi and Pixel the Parakeets. So in 2014, my wife and I decided that we wanted to get a pet, and we couldn't have dogs in our apartment. Of course, dogs were our first preference, but we have a dog now, which is a whole different story. And we decided, we were thinking about getting a rabbit or something else, and we decided that a small bird might be a good pet. So we decided on parakeets after doing some research and read up a whole bunch about them. And my wife told me about this place in San Francisco that does hand-raised parakeets, which is kind of unusual in the pet world. It's an independent pet shop in San Francisco, and they have one particular person who specializes in hand-raising budgies specifically. He does have other birds. He's had macaws there. He's had other larger parrots, but his passion is really in parakeets. And so he's been doing this for, I think, at least 20 years. And we went over there and talked to him and thought, you know, maybe this is a good idea, and just sort of described our situation to him. And he said, yeah, a parakeet would be a good pet for you guys. So we got on the list, and at this place, he hand raises these clutches of parakeets, and so there's a waiting list. They're very popular there, and they're quite affordable too. So we got on the list, and we got a call back a few months later saying, you now have your choice of parakeets. Come to the store and pick out your parakeet. So we did, and that was the first time that we met Kiwi, and I'm sure I can find some old photos somewhere from one of our phones from the first time that we ever met Kiwi. And we picked him out, and what the guy told us was, come back frequently. Come back as often as you want to bond with your bird before you can pick him up. So they usually bring birds out for selection not too long after they're hatched. It's several weeks, maybe a month. And then the birds are not released to customers until the birds are eating on their own. So he hand feeds the parakeets himself well up until the point where they eat on their own. And once they're eating on their own, they can go home with the customer. So that's another phone call that we had to wait for. So in the meantime, we came back once or twice and met Kiwi and just sort of interacted with him and held him. And that's how these birds stay so hand-tamed, is because they're hand-raised from the very beginning. So we brought him home one day in a little cardboard box that they gave us at the pet shop, and we brought him back into one of these cages that we have here. And anyway, that was the very beginning. And we knew that parakeets were among the top breed of talking parrots, and we decided that we would try to teach Kiwi to talk. So the way that that went is that we picked one or two small phrases, very, very short phrases at first. And I think the first one was cute baby bird. And we just repeated it to Kiwi all the time. Whenever we'd have him out on our shoulder, on our finger, we would just say the phrases to him frequently. And people ask us, okay, well, how often are you supposed to do it? And the answer is as much as possible. You don't want to do too much, meaning you don't want to do it, once every second for, hours. You say the phrase once, you wait 5 seconds, you say it again, and you do that for a few minutes, and you can do that a couple times an hour. And we usually think that the best number of times to get them to actually learn something is about 30 to 50 repetitions per day for any given phrase. So that's the first tip that we have. If you're trying to teach your bird to talk, stick to one phrase or two phrases and repeat them 30 to 50 times a day in order for your bird to learn the phrase. And don't do anything else, don't do any other phrases until the bird has started to pick up that phrase. And you're going to want to reinforce it. So anytime you hear the bird repeat the phrase, even if it's not quite correct, always reinforce it again by saying the same phrase over and over again. So it wasn't that long. It was only about 2 months after we got Kiwi that he started to talk, which means that he was only about 4 months old, which is pretty extraordinary. I know that, hi Pixel, we know that parakeets are among the top talking breeds of parrot, but we were just astonished that you can teach a parakeet to talk in just 4 months after they hatch. So pretty remarkable. The guy who hand raises the parakeets told us that his parakeet, whose name is Disco, which is not the talking disco that you guys might be familiar with that passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. The bird shop Disco was, I think, 6 or 7 years old before he started to talk at all. And he hadn't said anything, and apparently just one day he started talking, according to the bird guy. So anyway, that's just a few tips and tricks about getting your bird to talk. You know, about 2 years after we got Kiwi, we decided to get Pixel as well. Actually, no, 3 years. Kiwi was 3 years old when we got Pixel. And we talked to the bird store bird guy, and he said, you know, if you really want your birds to stay as tame as possible, he gave us this advice: don't get a second bird. So to be completely honest and candid with you guys, we went against his advice and we got a second hand-raised bird. And he did mention that if you have 2 birds, you're probably going to want both of them to be male. So you might recall some of our videos from a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago. We actually got our pick of parakeets and we chose a blue one. And what we did is we got him DNA tested using feather samples to verify that he was a male bird before we committed to actually purchasing him and taking him home when he was ready. So we sort of got lucky that on that first try he did end up being a male parakeet, and it was going to be okay. So originally when we first got Pixel, we were hoping that eventually we'd be able to have the birds together in one cage. Now, this is where things get a little bit complicated. You know, we did go against the recommendations of the guy who sold us the birds in the first place. And, you know, I think because of that, because they're so bonded to humans, that he's screaming at me so much right now. He really wants out. They're bonded to us. You know, they want to spend time with us. Back to where I was. They're so bonded with humans. When you get a hand-raised parakeet, they really like to, you know, be with humans because humans are their flock. So we have a couple theories, which is that Pixel is bonded to humans and doesn't get along with other parakeets, or that he's jealous that Kiwi was the first bird. We're kind of anthropomorphizing a little bit, attributing human characteristics to animals. So I don't really know if parakeets can get jealous of each other because of the time that they spend with humans, but we have a couple theories that might explain potentially why Pixel doesn't always get along with Kiwi and Kiwi doesn't always get along with Pixel. They spend plenty of time together, but if you leave them in the same cage, they tend to chase each other around, and it's usually Pixel who's being a little bit territorial. So anyway, as you see, they're both out right now, and I'm sure Pixel will see Kiwi over here on my shoulder and fly over, and then, you know, try to get Kiwi to fly off somewhere else. So for that reason, you know, we don't keep them in the same cage. It is fairly unusual to have 2 parakeets because they're very small birds, and usually people see them together in one cage. So that's your answer as to why we have 2 cages. And they actually, when they're outside of the cages, they, for the most part, get along okay. And they do play with each other, but inside the same cage, Kiwi never gets any solitude or rest. In terms of you know, cost and being able to take care of them, vet bills and things like that, you know, Kiwi and Pixel we've been really lucky with that. For the most part, they've been very happy, healthy birds. We have them both on a Harrison's Adult Lifetime Superfine pellet, which is supposed to be an organic pellet food, and it's really, really fine and small, so they can identify it as food rather than as some foreign object. A lot of pellets that they market for parakeets are too big, in my opinion, and we tried, I think, Lefebvre's as another brand once, and Kiwi wouldn't recognize it as food, so we had to try something else. So if you're getting your birds into pellets, always start off with a mix 50-50, you know, pellets and seeds, and then you can get them into the pellets entirely. So that's care, that's food-wise. They go through about a 3-pound bag of food every, I want to say, month and a half or 2 months. So it ends up being about $20 a month for food. The cages are typically a one-time cost if they're durable. In this case, we have these Vision bird cages, which we've enjoyed quite a lot. We have 3 of the cages. Most of them are under $100 a piece. The smaller ones are closer to $50 if you can find them on sale. And many people really like these cages. They don't have the slide out tray like some other cages do, so you kind of have to pull the top off and disassemble to clean them. But the flip side is that they actually stay really clean for longer than the pull out tray ones do. And once you have the top off, they're easier to clean as well. So, you know, we buy them toys occasionally. They entertain themselves quite easily with things like, you know, kitty grass and with, you know, millet and things like that. So, you know, they're not really expensive pets to have around. Although what is true of every pet is that you really, really want to have money set aside for vet bills in case you need to. We did have to take Kiwi to the vet once. We determined, I think, that our house was it was a few degrees colder than it should have been in the wintertime, and Kiwi was getting a little bit sick because he wasn't warm enough. And eventually he was fine, of course, as you can see. That was probably 4 years ago. And since then, neither one have been back to the vet for any reason at all. We've had a couple scares with things like blood feathers, which we've been able to take care of ourselves. We have another video about blood feathers, which I can link you to. So anyway, that is my video for the day. If you guys have any questions about bird ownership, owning small parakeets, you know, let us know in the comments and we'll try to answer them, if not make a whole new video. Thank you for supporting this channel. This has been an incredible journey so far. You know, the channel became big after Kiwi, you know, activated Siri by saying, "Hey Siri," into the iPhone. And ever since then, it's been all uphill. And so we've had this incredible outpouring of support, almost 43,000 subscribers as of today. And, you know, we're having a lot of fun with the channel and really appreciate all of your support and viewership. So thanks again for watching Kiwi and Pixel the Parakeets. Take care.